Outside of the mountain, thousands of cultivators lined up in dozens of small groups. Some stood on flying swords, some on chariots, and some on the ground. Various banners were waving in front of them. The Heavenly Sword Sect, the Duanlin branch of the Confucian School, the primal sect of the Tao League. Work harder, everybody. The shield is not going to last for long. The villainous Patriarch of Golden Court Mountain must be seriously wounded, which is why he dares not to come out now. If it were in the past, Golden Court Mountain would have never suffered such humiliation in silence. Indeed, he must be too scared to come out and face us. Let's continue to challenge him to a fight. A chariot drifted through the sky, from which came ringing out a voice, "Listen up, the villains of Golden Court Mountain. You are surrounded. Quickly come out and face your death." The voice echoed and sounded mighty, greatly boosting the morale of the orthodox cultivators. Meanwhile, the top 10 experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm each sat in a chariot, waiting with their eyes closed for the shield to break. The old villain is here. Be careful. Suddenly, the cultivators' expressions changed, and they quickly flew backward on their swords. Not daring to posture again, they simply landed and stood among the crowd. Right at that moment, the top 10 experts opened their eyes. However, the eldest disciple of the Heavenly Sword Sect, Zhou, was very bold. He was the only one still floating and looking down from the sky, as if he were going to spearhead the attack. The cultivators' eyes were fixed on the entrance of Golden Court Mountain as a group of people walked over slowly, with Zhou at the front and his 4 disciples following closely behind. They did not use any powerful divine abilities and just walked like ordinary people, but many cultivators dared not to even breathe too loudly. The white-haired old man was none other than the well-known villainous Patriarch, the master of the 9 notorious evil disciples. Just as he approached the shield, Zhou stopped, which made his 4th disciple, Zhou, pause in surprise. Why doesn't he move on? Zhou remained calm and collected. He knew it would arouse his villainous disciple's suspicion, but it did not matter. Once he drove back the enemies, they would naturally be brought to their heels. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sword Sect, Luo Changfeng, was the first to speak. It's only been a month, and the Patriarch of Villains seems to be getting younger. His joke made the crowd burst into laughter. However, Zhou paid no heed to it. "You're a bold man, Luo Changfeng," he said indifferently. "Stop pretending. You may be able to fool these few villainous disciples of yours, but you can't deceive us. It is meaningless to be pretentious. Surrender now, and the orthodox sect of the world will spare you a whole body," said Luo Changfeng. Floating in the sky, Zhou suddenly said in a loud voice, "The 4 of you should be the last 4 disciples of this old guy, right?" The 9th disciple, Yuana, rolled her eyes and said, "Who else can we be? What an idiot." Zhou glanced at the little girl. Anyhow, he was not angry as he went on. This old villain had been badly hurt, and it has not been easy for him to pretend until now. Here's a chance for you to give up evil and return to the good. Kill him together with us from the orthodox sections. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Tens of thousands of cultivators roared, their voices shaking the sky and echoing throughout the entire Golden Court Mountain. "They are Fu * King Noisy. Master, please let me fight them. I can't wait to peel off the skin and break the bones of this arrogant boy." Mingshi bowed and said, Mingshi was a genuine expert at the Tao transforming stage of the divine court realm, stronger than those at the same level. Zhou was no match for him at all. So the latter swallowed as he maneuvered his sword and moved a few meters back. He must be tired of living to fight in the vanguard against Golden Court Mountain. Zhou raised a hand and said, "There's no need. How could these orthodox sects give you a chance to fight them one-on-one?" "You are right, Master." Mingshi nodded and said, with a charming smile, the 5th disciple, Zhou, said sarcastically, "Handsome boy, your flying sword looks amazing. If you manage to stay alive after receiving a single slap from me, I'll let you kill me. What do you think about that?" Jifeng stepped back. "Yes," Luo Changfeng said. "Who doesn't know that all the 9 villainous disciples of Golden Court Mountain are experts of the divine court realm and above? I'm afraid that only villains like you would bully a junior. Lu Zhou did not speak, but looked at them quietly. At that moment, Chong Jian of the Duanlin branch said, "Today, the experts of the Orthodox sects are joining hands to punish you. You villains have only yourself to blame for this. Good and evil must have their reward at last. So stop putting up meaningless resistance. I have my own judgment as to whether it is good or evil, right or wrong. Even if my disciples does something wrong, they can only be punished by me. It is not up to you to tell me what to do," said Lu Zhou faintly. Upon hearing that, Luo Chongfeng and the others burst out laughing. "You are really good at joking. Old thing, by the time you punish them, the whole world will be completely over. Yu Zhenghai's nether sect is swallowing other sects everywhere, but have you punished him? Yu Shangrong robbed tens of thousands of precious items from the secondary capital of Great Yan. Have you punished him? Let me ask you again, is it Yu Shangrong who abducted the princess of the western regions married to Great Yan? Yes. Is it because of Si Wuya's incitement that 30,000 cultivators died in Rongbei? Yes. It is good for you to admit that. To teach without severity is the teacher's laziness. What else do you have to say?" Over the years, his villainous disciples had indeed done a lot of evil, but at this moment, these orthodox cultivators and him were enemies with different opinions. Lu Zhou glanced at Luo Chongfeng and replied calmly, "And then, 1 inch don't you think what your evil sky pavilion has done is hated by both man and heaven?" Luo Chongfeng shook his head. "Those who are not our kin are sure to be of a different heart. Those from the western regions are not our kin, and so is the case of those from Rongbei, and yet you pity them. Your motive is execrable. You—" Luo Chongfeng was infuriated by Lu Zhou's remark. The other 9 experts also shook their heads, thinking that this old villain was hopeless. However, at that moment, the 4 disciples behind Lu Zhou looked a little surprised. Their master was not an eloquent man, and he always killed his opponent upon the slightest disagreement. But now, he actually reasoned with these orthodox cultivators. It was a wonder for them. From the corner of his eyes, Mingshi Yin glanced at his master. Lu Zhou was standing inside the shield, and his aura and attitude were no different from before. However, he kept having a strange feeling about the latter, which he could not pinpoint exactly. "Old villain, you should get out of the shield now if you have the guts." "There's no point in pretending like this," said Chong Jian. "In that case, I'll fight with the 10 of you again." The top 10 experts were stunned for a moment, and then they burst out laughing. How could Ji Tiandao, who was wounded right now, beat them when he failed to do so in the battle that happened a month ago? Luo Chongfeng said in a loud voice, "Oh villain, I'll see how long you can pretend. Come out and fight me now." Lu Zhou looked at Luo Chongfeng with a calm face. However, Mingshi Yin's eyebrows frowned before relaxing. With master's temper, he would never do this. If he really had the ability to fight the 10 of them together, he would not have quarreled and reasoned with them. This only means one thing: master is really injured. A hint of a smile brushed the corner of Mingshi Yin's mouth, under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Lu Zhou walked out of the shield, standing against the wind and facing tens of thousands of cultivators. He had never seen such a grand scene in his life, and he would be lying if he said he was not nervous. Nonetheless, he had to stay calm. "Well, show me what you can do," said Lu Zhou. Swoosh! Luo Chongfeng flashed up in midair, and then his sword multiplied and began to spin rapidly like an umbrella. This is a unique skill of the Heavenly Sword sect called a Flash of Heavenly Sword. It can attack over 100 times in a flash. Even a peak expert of the nascent divinity tribulation realm dares not to take a head-on. The disciples of Heavenly Sword sect were very excited. This is sect leader's Flash of Heavenly Sword. The attack will show us his true colors. Even if he can take it, he can't change anything. This old villain is courting death himself. The eyes of thousands of cultivators were all focused on Lu Zhou. The stronger experts were trying to sense his energy fluctuation, wanted to find out his real strength. However, they found nothing, as if he were just an ordinary person. Luo Chongfeng's Flash of Heavenly Sword began to gather power, and beams of sword light soon converged together. Master. Lu Yuana looked worried. Meanwhile, the other 3 villainous disciples were not as nervous as her, and instead they watched with great interest. "Don't worry. Master is not going to get himself killed for nothing," said Mingshi-in, the 4th disciple. Perhaps their master really had some trump cards. It was just as well to let these people test them out. Little Yuana had no trouble in learning her senior brother's and sister's intentions. She could tell that from their unconcealed expressions. But her master was facing the heavenly sword sect's strongest skill, which even a peak expert of the nascent divinity tribulation realm dared not to take head-on. It was obviously Luo Changfeng's trap. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou looked calm, but he was extremely nervous inside. He kept staring at the items on the menu, the peak form experience card and the critical block card, while paying close attention to the surroundings. When necessary, he knew that he must use the peak form experience card. Moreover, he also realized that his 4 villainous disciples were growing suspicious. Ding! A side quest is triggered. The will of others is not ours to see. Make the villainous disciples show their true colors. Lu Zhou's face flickered when he saw the quest. He was facing enemies from the front and the rear. What a pathetic master he was. At that moment, Luo Changfeng's flash of heavenly sword finished gathering power. Die! Swoosh! 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 A whirlpool of sharp blades shot straight toward Lu Zhou, rolling up strong gusts of wind that blew at the thousands of cultivators, forcing them to narrow their eyes and veil their sights. Duck, master! Little Yuana was shocked. Duanmu Sheng, Mingshi-in, and Zhou Yu also watched with wide eyes, their faces looking worried. Even if their master were not injured, it would still be a little difficult for him to take the attack head-on. So why would he do that? "You can't die right now, old thing." Duanmu Sheng cried out reflexively as he exchanged a glance with Mingshi-in and Zhou Yu, their eyebrows frowning. If the other died, those cultivation techniques and weapons would disappear with him. Swoosh! Duanmu Sheng and Zhou Yu bolted over. Just as the hundreds of blades approached, the 3rd and 5th disciples set off huge waves, one heading toward their master, and the other toward Luo Changfeng's blades. Oh! Lu Zhou frowned slightly. They are indeed villainous disciples. Are they worried that I will bring the treasures to my grave after I die? Master, retreat. The gust of wind sent out by Duanmu Sheng with all his strength pushed the blades off their course by a little, sending them toward the Golden Court Mountain shield. Even so, the remaining energy still shook Lu Zhou and made him feel sick. He immediately turned around and ran back into the shield in feigned panic. Zhao Yu's energy blast was to save her master, but as he stepped into the shield, it smashed on the protective barrier. Boom! Boom! The blast exploded on the invisible shield in midair like fireworks. Crack! Crack! In the blink of an eye, the shield of Golden Court Mountain cracked with lines spreading out everywhere. It would most likely not last for too long. Silence fell and all sights were restored. Lu Zhou looked up a little at the shield and sighed in his heart. The critical block card was not triggered, and he still had 5 of them. In other words, no attack could harm him right now. However, the group of villainous disciples had ruined his plan. I knew this old villain was pretending. He ran really fast just now. I saw it too. What a shame. I didn't expect the formidable patriarch of villains to be reduced to this. That gave the tens of thousands of cultivators more confidence. Luo Changfeng flew forward as he looked down from the sky and said, "So, is this your trick? It has really opened my eyes." His attack had missed a target, but he was not bothered by it. As far as the people from the orthodox sect were concerned, it was meaningless for this group of villains to play any tricks. "Luo Changfeng, you are so shameless. Do you want my master to stand unmoving like a practice target and let you hit with a full power attack? Do you take us all for fools?" Zhao Yu said sarcastically with a smile. "Zhao Yu, I was trading blows with your master, but you suddenly interfered even when he didn't say anything. Haha, it seems that his status as the Patriarch of Villains is no longer as respected as before," said Luo Changfeng. "I can't believe that a formidable Patriarch of Villains ended up needing the protection of his villainous disciples. This will be a strange piece of news for the world." Lu Zhou paid no heed to their words, which were nothing but trash talk meant to mock him. They were a waste of time and totally meaningless. Instead, he glanced at the peak form experience cards once again. He had 3 of them, which would give him a total of 1.5 hours of peak time. In other words, once he used them, he had to fight and win the battle as quickly as possible. When Ming-Shir-In saw his master's expression, he cupped his fist and said, "Master, there's no need to waste your breath with them, with your mightiness, as long as you hold back the top 10 experts. The rest of them are just underlings you can let the 4 of us handle. Isn't that better?" Zhou frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Are you doubting my decision?" "No, this disciple dares not." Zhou had a deep understanding of pacifying the internal before resisting foreign aggression now. If he did not pacify this group of villainous disciples, he would have a hard time later on. The time of the peak form experience card was fixed, and once he used them all, he would fall into a crisis again. "Duanmu Shang." "Yes, master." "How dare you?" Zhou's voice grew louder. "What? Who allowed you to interfere in my affairs?" Duanmu Sheng's expression changed slightly. He hurried over and dropped to his knees as he said, "I know it was wrong, but I was worried about Master's safety. The old fool Luo Chanfeng is trying to trick Master into falling into his trap. Master must not fall for his tricks." In fact, many things were already very obvious, and all it took was for someone to rip the thin layer of paper apart. For the past month, Ji Tiandao had been struggling and putting on airs. However, these disciples were no idiots, and some details had long made them suspicious. Zhou was a dimension traveler and not Ji Tiandao, so no matter how hard he tried to imitate, he could not get the essence of Ji Tiandao's speech. At this moment, the group of villainous disciples had already realized that their master was pretending. Since he was pretending, there was no need for them to continue acting. At that moment, Ming-Shir-In did not pretend to be afraid like Duanmu Shang. With a treacherous smile on his face, he said, "You've been acting very hard, master. I think it's enough." "Oh, third senior brother, get up." Ming-Shir-Yin's attitude changed. Meanwhile, the respectful look on Duanmu Shang's face disappeared as he slowly rose to his feet. The 5th disciple, Zhou Yu, chuckled and said, "Give up, master. As long as you give us all your cultivation techniques and weapons, we will definitely bring you away today, and you will always be our master." Little Yuaner's eyes grew wide as she said, "Senior brothers and sister, what are you doing?" Outside the shield, Luo Changfeng and the others laughed wildly when they saw the villains fight among themselves. "You may escape an untoward act of heaven, but never the evil of your own. 1 inch, this is karma. With such villainous disciples, you should have been mentally prepared for this. The 5 villainous disciples who betrayed you are the best examples. I think this old villain will not come to a good end even without us orthodox sects fighting him." The top 10 experts looked at each other and laughed. Zhou was not afraid of being laughed at. For him, none of this mattered as long as he could resolve the immediate crisis. He nodded, and his eyes moved from the faces of his 3rd, 4th, and 5th disciple, and finally stopped on his 9th disciple. "What about you, Yuaner?" Master." Little Yuaner hesitated. "It doesn't matter. Just say what you have to say. I've lived long enough to see all kinds of storms. When your eldest and 2nd senior brothers left Golden Court Mountain, they were much more determined than you," said Zhou in a faint voice. Little Yuaner went down on her knees. "Master, this disciple dares not." "Ding. You've completed the side quest. The will of others is not ours to see. The reward is the eye of truth, and the effect is permanent." That gave Zhou a pause. Suddenly, special labels appeared in his eyes over the few villainous disciples in front of him. Duanmu Sheng, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 23%, declining. Ming-Shir-In, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 15%, declining. Zhou Yu, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 35%, declining. C.I. Yuaner, Divine Court Realm. Loyalty 60%, increasing. 11-inch hint. When a disciple's loyalty is below 0%, he or she will betray the sect and become an enemy. When loyalty is more than 80%, the disciple will not betray, while over 90% is absolute loyalty. The The decline of the first three disciples' loyalty was within his expectation, but Zhou was slightly surprised by the fact that little Yuaner's loyalty was increasing. "In this case, there is no need for me to continue pretending," said Zhou deliberately. "Yes, I did get hurt." His disciples' eyes gleamed. Meanwhile, the cultivators outside the shield were eager to rush into the shield and rip the old villain into pieces like a pack of savage wolves. Zhou noticed that the loyalty of the first three disciples had reduced by 5%, but then his tone changed suddenly. "But this doesn't mean you can lift your finger against me." Zhou crushed a Ji Qindao's peak form experience card. In a flash, his dried-up meridians, Dantian, and Sea of Qi were filled to the maximum levels. With him at the center, a powerful blast rolled out in all directions. Ah! How is this possible? Duanmu Sheng. Mingshi Yin and Zhao Yu flew backward, each spitting out a mouthful of blood, while little Yuaner's eyes grew wide as she stared incredulously at her master. Waves of powerful blasts poured forth and shattered the shield, which was already on the verge of collapsing. In the blink of an eye, the shield disappeared. Tens of thousands of cultivators watched in astonishment, and the whole world fell silent. Isn't he hurt? How can he still emit such powerful blasts? I clearly saw him running back into the shield in panic. I have a bad feeling. Stop saying that. I can feel my legs shaking. The top 10 experts also stared angrily at Zhou and looked incredulous. On the other hand, the latter took a deep breath and did not even look at his three villainous disciples. The feeling of peak form was really good. He felt as if everything was under his control, and everyone in front of him had become ants he could crush with just a flick of a finger. As soon as Duanmu Sheng and the other two disciples fell to ground, they rolled over and knelt on both knees, as they said in unison, "This disciple begs master's pardon." Blood trickled from the corners of their mouths and fell on the backs of their hands. Their fingers kept trembling, and they did not dare to even breathe too loudly. Zhou glared at them and lifted a hand. A powerful blast poured toward the three disciples like a huge wave. "You have disobeyed me, and you will be punished." Bam! 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 3 beams of golden light smashed onto the 3 disciples, causing them to vomit blood again. "I'll deal with you when I come back." Zhou did not look at them in the eyes, but glanced at the remaining time. He still had some 29 minutes. It did not take him too much time to teach the 3 disciples a lesson.